Well, thanks for staying with us on the program this morning. And just like I said before the break, our second round of conversations is centered around political stories, rocking major parties in the country from the PDP to the APC, permutations ahead of 2027, and the much debated position of the APC on a joint ticket. How would the party be looking to go into the polls? With speculations insinuating that the president might drop his vice, Senator Hashim, in what it looks at as a way to retain power. Now, on the program this morning, a public affairs analyst, Hashim Suleiman, joins me to discuss this.
Thank you.
Hashim, good morning to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning, bro.
Now, first off, let's start with the opposition, the PDP. INEC had a meeting behind closed doors in which it reminded the PDP on the need to obey the Supreme Court ruling on the national president, reaffirming the position of Senator Sam Ayamu, which, to their credit, Damagum obliged, but he met a resistance from 11 NWC members. This morning, 30th June, was supposed to be the day for its 100 NEC meeting. But there's been debates on how the party would proceed in line with this development. Let's get your honest thoughts of this developments.
Okay, so the thing is, for me and for a lot of observers, and that's why, unless you're critical about whatever it is that you do, you're really going to continue to have it wrong, because Nigerians followed keenly to hear anywhere where INEC mentioned specifically that they were supporting Anyanwu. But I think what we heard them say clearly was that, yes, the Supreme Court ruling should be obeyed, which was to the effect that PDP should go back and sort itself and sort that out. But then, the acting national chairman came on and made it look as though it was INEC that insisted such, and then asked that Samuel Anyanwu be returned to the National Secretary seat, to the extent that even the Minister of FCT had to tell the acting chairman publicly that it was not his purview to ask Anyanwu to resume, because after all, he wasn't his appointee. You see, so now you will see that there could be then the other part, the other members now, NWC members, who are saying no, and they have a backing of some governors too, because yesterday the governor of Oyo visited the governor of Enugu, and they came out to reiterate that the NEC was still going to hold today, and that the decision of the NEC to have appointed Shetunji still stands. And so you could see clearly that the suspicion by Nigerians over time, because I was telling somebody yesterday, I said, it appears to me that Nigerians actually see through all of these things that are going. They may choose not to even speak about it, but trust me, anybody who feels that Nigerians are not understanding the narrative or the intent of some of these things, so clearly there appears to be an attempt to obliterate PDP. And I don't think that the people who have got that intent...
When you say that there appears to be, who do you think is sponsoring this intent to obliterate PDP in your words?
Okay, so I think people formulate their strategies for winning elections. People formulate their strategies of how they think they can survive in the democracy. But I think that what lacks in some of that over time, because as young people, we have to be able to start to tell these young people about how some of these things can be done wrong. You see that, unfortunately, I don't know who advises some of our leaders to take some decisions in terms of their political strategies, but I think sometimes you see some lack of criticality in it. Sometimes you see lack of sustainability plans being wrapped around some of those decisions. And at the end, so I think, that perhaps some people who felt that they want to help the president felt, okay, that if they obliterated the PDP, then it was going to be less of a stress, perhaps. They think that they're helping the president by doing that. I mean, and the president, just like he said, he will not be the one to go and fix anybody's home. So if anybody is even doing that on his behalf, and the members of that association agree for such to happen, he will have little or less to do about it. But the efficacy of that strategy that those people are trying to put up is what is being put into question today. Because at the end of the day, look, now you attempted to do all of that, but then the opposition people who are probably also putting in their thinking cap had other ideas, and they came up with a coalition. And I think any moment from now they're going to announce the platform that they're going to be running on. So at the end of the day, if you are not making PDP available for them, they're having another vehicle that they're going to use, and they're still going to pose the threat anyways.
Now, to the best of knowledge of Nigerians, the closest PDP person to Mr. President is his FCT minister.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Even so, if you look, it's not. He doesn't even hide it now. He doesn't even hide it. In the last 2023 election, he practically did the same thing, and you could say that in that 2023, it worked. Perhaps
he won his state.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He won the state. He also moved 5 PDP governors. Do you understand? Along with him. And he led them to not support the presidential candidate of the PDP, and to a large extent it did work, and then he was compensated. So what somebody would believe was that the strategy should have been changed, because to presume that the same strategy employed in 2023 will work in 2027
might not work.
Might not, naturally. That's how
now, in his defense, he's saying that his position on the national secretary of the party is not his own will, but that of the Supreme Court, since has been affirmed by the judiciary.
But does that make sense? But nobody till today has come out to show where the Supreme Court expressly mentioned Samuel Anyanwu. So we have to because if we continue to play this ostrich game, trying to taper the issues, they're not going to go, because like I told you, Nigerians are observant. I'm telling you, I discuss with people on the street, and they see all of these things that I'm talking about, and they understand them for what they are. So no matter how much you want to come and sugarcoat it or make it, because people have checked to see where what everybody understands is the Supreme Court has said that such kind of issues are internal party affairs, and that the parties, even the same thing for Labour too, it's the same thing that the Supreme Court said. It's a party affair. Go back and fix and as long as you can go back. And that's why you see the Arakpaja faction now are saying that since that's this ruling of the Supreme Court, and the NEC had sought, and the NEC was summoned with proper notice to INEC, signed by the Deputy National Secretary, I think, or something related to that they feel that such has already sufficed. Party has fixed herself and has appointed a secretary ratified by the NEC, and then that everything should move on like that. So that's the point. So the thing is, Nigerians understand these things, and that's why I say that you have to be sure that the strategy you're putting on the ground, that it is durable enough, and that it's going to stand the test of time, and that at the end of the day, whatever desire it is that you have will comfort. Because otherwise, then you practically just be wasting your time.
Now, party chieftain Bode George issued a statement. He says they need dedicated members to survive 2027. My thoughts with that statement is, you already have a former Senate president in Dr. Bukola Saraki heading the Reconciliation Committee. But despite this effort, there is clearly two camps. There is the BK camp and the Governor Seyi Makinde camp.
Yes, obviously. Right.
How much of a task does Dr. Bukola Saraki have on his hands?
Yeah, so maybe I think from the last interview that I see him grant to a certain TV station, what I could glean from his submissions was to the extent that he's playing more of a long game. So I don't think that whatever it is that Bukola is doing is about 2027, because I can tell you for free that it's a little too late to get these issues sorted out and then to move into other issues that pertain to 2027. So perhaps it's a long game, and he might have it a little easier since the coalition is coming up, and definitely there's going to be a lot of exodus. Some people are going to move there from other parties also. They're going to move there, and then perhaps there will be less to contend for. So therefore, if there's less to contend for, then I think the crisis will just naturally go, and then the people who are left in there will do what it is that they want to do with the party.
Now, you had earlier mentioned strategies going into 2027. There clearly seems to be a strategy that Nigerians are calling one that would lead us to a one-party stateship. This morning, one of the other headlines making the rounds is that the Bayelsa State House of Assembly has majority of its lawmakers endorsing the defection of Governor Diri.
Yeah.
It almost seems as though the APC is looking to pull in more PDP governors, a move that the president has dispelled as one that would not lead us into a one-party stateship. What do you make of this news of defection again, following the Akwa Ibom State governor, following the Delta State governor? Another Niger Delta governor in Governor Diri is looking to defect to the APC.
Yeah, I mean, Governor Diri is coming into the APC, and that's fine. I mean, there's been a lot of narrative around how the APC is trying to, how will I say, more like dominate the South, and more like trying to ensure that the South is on lock and key for the party. I think that such effort is a movement towards the actualization of that. But I think the most concerning, I mean, going into 2027, and because you mentioned strategy, the most concerning and the zone that becomes the battleground remains the northern Nigeria. So therefore, yes, Diri is going to come. How much votes is
he going to
Bayelsa going to bring to the table? So yes, that's some movement. But I think the Nigerians are expecting to see big movements, and I guess that's why there is a very, very loud rumor around Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso at the moment.
But now, at the state level, before we get to the conversations about Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, let's talk about the state level. Over time, there's been conversations of rubber stamping the decisions of the executives. Now, in states like Delta, where a majority of the House of Assembly members are all from one party, so is the governor. Now in Bayelsa, there are presently 19 members of the PDP in the 24 House member legislature. What this means is if they defect alongside the governor, they will practically have 2/3 in the House automatically.
Yeah, obviously.
What does this do in terms of a clear separation of power ideology at the state level and how they operate in terms of implementing governance to the people?
Yeah, so you know all of this democratic culture, it's a function of a leader. And, you know, I was listening to Mr. Peter Obi yesterday. He was in a certain space and speaking with people. And he actually gave a practical example of how when he was governor as APGA, he had majority PDP House of Assembly, and he never bothered whether they were going to come to his party. In fact, he didn't even want it. They remained in their party and he remained in his, but governance then moved on like that. And so, and that's practical. That's not to say I have any preferences for Peter Obi or not, but that's practical. And so it behoves on me as a critical somebody to make a meaning of it. So the thing is, what is all of this new methodology of people just defecting and then insisting that everybody still has to come with them, whether you like it or not, and that you have to come? I think really it's a worry for our democracy. And I really think that we have to learn to let people be. We should formulate our strategy within what we have, and that's why initially I was telling you about how there has to be criticality in strategy formulation. You have to make the appropriate recruitments, get the right people. They'll map out the strategy for you without having to do all of this, trying to, you know, put out a very, very, very bad optics of because democracy is a science, and it has its do's and don'ts. And trust me, once you insist on picking on those don'ts of democracy, they will always come with their consequences. And the consequences are dire and not necessarily very nice. So why don't people just invest in strategy formulation? And it's very, very simple. I mean, there's nothing so difficult about Nigeria's democracy or how to formulate strategies for winning elections.
Let's talk about some of these perceived consequences. Right now, the APC is getting fat on defections, but the challenge is in managing ambitions. Because before now, there were card-carrying party members who had vied for governorship elections in some of these states, and we're looking at it that 2027 might be another chance to go to the ballot and see if they can win over the people of the state.
Exactly.
Now, when you have a sitting governor who is also nursing an ambition of a second term, vying with someone who had already been in the party, nursing that ambition. What do you foresee in that situation?
That's the thing I'm saying now. That's why you don't break certain rules of democracy. Is simple. Like it guarantees freedom, association, being able to express yourself. Once you alter all of that, like they're going to come with and those are the sort of consequences. You're going to have dissatisfactions. You're going to have breakages. You're going to have a lot of issues coming up, and so. It's a no-brainer that such will be the consequence of breaking the rules of democracy. So, again, I insist that our democracy is growing. It's growing by the day. And the best that any politician would do for themselves is to invest in critical strategy formulation so that as the society is changing, its dynamics is changing, your own strategy is also taken into cognizance. But this presumption that Nigerians are perpetually docile or that they do not understand what is going on or they do not understand what's happening, that perpetual belief has made people to just continue to churn out what they deem as strategy. But if you ask me, and if you interrogate it properly, you'll see really that there's some deficit of such.
Now, talking about deficits, whilst you've itemized this strategy as lacking, another one that Nigerians on a consensus identify as lacking is a clear-cut party ideology. I don't know, we borrowed this system from the West, but in the West, you have the Republicans, you have the Democrats. You rarely see these defections, as it were, because a Republican does not automatically become a Democrat overnight. But here in Nigeria, it's almost very easy for them to cross carpets at the blink of an eyelid.
Yeah.
Do you see this lack of clear-cut party ideologies as being a headache or a blessing in disguise?
Yeah, but you cannot have party ideology when you have economic insecurity. When people's economies are insecure, when there's a winner takes all, mindset that is prevalent in the society. Do you understand? So people have to survive is a natural phenomenon. If you're in America, regardless of whatever party you belong, your social security is guaranteed. Your rights are guaranteed. Nobody would judge you based on the color of your skin as long as you're American or because of the political party leanings that you have. And so sometimes, like, I am somebody who excuses the people for the sort of character that they put out. You don't expect anything less than what you see, because indeed we have not done as much to advance the democratic space so that everybody can be a Nigerian first before being identified with whatever leanings that it is that they've got. So people will keep the campaign.
Mr. Hashim, another excuse people give is that the system of democracy in America is over 100 years.
Yeah.
They give the excuse that we're immature in some sort. Yeah. Is that a worthy excuse?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, because the people have not economically grown as much. Do you understand? Because of the number of years. I mean, you would have to agree also that democracy has brought a whole lot to Nigeria, no doubt about that. I mean, all of the things we're doing today are courtesy of democracy. I'm not saying that we're there, but democracy has brought a whole lot. It's going to bring much more. And that's why you see now, it's because that the democracy is growing. That's why we're being able to sit here and puncture some of the strategies that some of these political players are bringing to the table. It's because it's obvious that their strategy appears archaic and appears that it's not going to fly in the Nigeria of today. That shows what progress. But it's going to get to that time where you're going to begin to have the ideology. Even if you see right now, the conversations, they're putting in a whole lot of pressure on these defectors. I'm sure if you go and check their temperature by themselves too, they're having to just do these things for perhaps reasons that we do not know. But if you can check their minds, they do understand that the conversations that people are making about how there should be people of more integrity, there should be this, there should be that, because people are actually calling some of these things out. They're refusing to even identify with some of these things, even though they might be quiet about it. But when you check the comments here and there, you'll see that people are not necessarily identifying with some of these things. So we're going to get there. I think that Nigeria's democracy is becoming very, very interesting. For some people, if you had asked them maybe some months ago, 4-5 months ago, what's the outlook for 2027, it will appear as though APC has already swept the elections before.
Now, talking about the outlook.
But right now, it's changing on a daily.
One of those changes that is quite obvious that came as a surprise to many Nigerians is a request by over 100 associations to be registered at political
exactly.
parties.
So that's the thing. People are now, there's a quiet interest in the system. People are discussing, people are having conversations. I wish, I don't know if you were on that X space yesterday that Parallel Facts hosted Peter Obi, but it was packed. There were a whole lot of people in there. You'd be surprised what are the people there were interested to come and hear all of the conversations that were going to be held. That's what's going on in Nigeria right now. People are seeing this opaque strategies. People are seeing through them. They're calling them out. They're like, no, you can't do this. People are calling out people who had hitherto insulted people, and today they're singing their praises. People are calling them out. People are
with receipts,
with receipts. That's the thing now. They'll bring it back to you. That's what I'm saying. These facts. Nobody is even talking about. You would even appear foolish trying to deny the facts when they brought forth to you. People are not even listening to those kind of people. No, they think that they are being strategic. They think they are putting out nice stories or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is, if they want to hear, is people are not listening to them. People are listening to something else. People are looking for alternatives. People are looking, and if you insist on dismissing all of these realities, then the reality is going to hit you right in the face, because it is apparent, it is there, it is existing. And so this is all about it. I think that the ideology part we're going to get there. I think it's even happening. I think people are even forced to understand the need to stand appropriately on whatever it is that they believe in now. And I think that, you know, that literally the society forced Peter Obi to be on that space yesterday, to declare to them where his stand was, because the question they asked him was clear, straight to the point. Where are you, with the coalition, or are you standing alone for the next election? And he told them expressly that he was part and parcel of the coalition.
Now, talking about the chances of the coalition, it's important just to reference the North as we move on to our next subject. Mr. Hashim Suleiman, a public analyst this morning, has urged political actors to have clearly defined strategies ahead of the election, faulting this massive wave of defections rocking, particularly PDP governors. Now, the next conversation is on the permutations and how much of a role the North plays. While the APC has been fingered at as doing some reshufflings to clear up some positions so that its worthy contenders coming ahead of the 2027 polls, its position of national chairman has also seen a recent vacation. The national chairman in Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje resigned on what many call held grounds, but some people faulted this resignation, citing that he had appeared at several functions and did not show any strain of ill health before that public notice. Let's start with the resignation of Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje. Did you see it coming?
Yeah, obviously. You know, again, there are things that are not allowed in democracy. When they happen, they're going to have consequences, and when the consequences come, then you even perhaps start to wonder what else you want to do as a remedy to them. In the first place, we could recall clearly that it was Abdullahi Adamu that was the national chairman of the APC, alongside Yola Omisore. And if you asked me, I'm not sure anybody understood the reason why those duo had to be asked to resign. Because after all, what can they really do? The president has already come on board. It's his party. It is only natural that regardless of whatever disposition it is that they have, they will at least tone it down. And you have just barely 2 years for them to be there. And then there will be a convention where a new national chairman will come who will midwife the 2027 processes. So if you ask, I would wonder why they had to be let out. Now they were, even though the position of the national secretary was still ceded to the same state as Yola Omisore with Bashiru coming up, but that of the national chairman was even taken away from the region that it was supposed to have come from, that's the North Central, and taken to the Northwest. And you know, like Ian had told you, that people observe things. They could maybe, because of the room, read the room and choose not to say anything about it. But it's an issue that is there. It's a wound more like that you've just dressed without putting any medicine. So it's there, it's paining a little bit, but then you're feeling like there's actually nothing wrong. And so it is because the other permutations coming up now have now exposed that decision was perhaps not well thought out, or not the sustainability of it was not put into consideration. And once sprinkles of those other permutations from other side are coming naturally, I mean, there's no way you stop the ruling party from having information of what's going on the other side. And so it has exposed that, and an emergency, more like is a remedy, had to be put in for the national chairman to vacate, so perhaps some things can be corrected. But then, how much time is there now to start? Yeah, because already removing him, whether anybody likes it or not, it may not even be about him. It may not be about him, but whether you like it or not, he has got the sympathy. Because sometimes you have to also be doing the maths. At least I'm from Jigawa, I was born in Kano, and I can tell you that if you go back to 2023 election, considering the circumstances that prevailed, you would have to be fair to say that Ganduje did pretty well. Because because of Kano State's votes, 500,000 that was given to the APC, it made Northwest as a zone highest producer of votes for the APC in 2023 elections. And there were certain circumstances. Now you will now go to the governorship election in Kano for 2023. The difference between Abba Kabir Yusuf and Nasiru Yusuf, governor of APC, was just a very slim margin. And in fact, it was almost, the tribunal was even almost turning it and giving it back to Nasiru. So that means that whatever anybody says, he has got some level of goodwill in that state. And so all of these people, is not even about him. What do you think their disposition is going to be right now? So I'm trying to tell you that even the removal itself is also going to come with some little, no matter how small the consequences are. Consequences in politics, nobody wants them. Negative consequences most especially. So if you had allowed Abdullahi Adamu and Iola Omishore to proceed to finish up, you wouldn't have had all of this issue. The party would have been intact, in my opinion. You get to do your convention and still, do the necessary host trading that you need to do to have the desired executives that you have, and then you move on like that. But now, those two were removed. This one's now there's this one. It will create a problem. Whoever you're going to bring on board next might have some other people not. Then the rumor, most prominent rumor, is to the effect that he was eased out, perhaps so as to have Kwankwaso
that's what I'm coming to now. Kano has to be one of the biggest talking points when you look at the numerical advantages in winning elections. And now the margins between the NNPP and the APC in Kano, like you've said, has been much dedicated on these key figures who have large followings. One, the non-ousted APC national chairman, and Rabi Musa Kwankwaso.
Yes.
How does this shape the permutations going into? Is he now supposed to come from the NNPP to join forces with the APC? Because it looks as though the coalition is making its own strategy along those lines.
Yes, so the point is now, if Kwankwaso, I believe that he would have something to bring to the APC table.
So you foresee a defection?
No, I see. No, yes, so but the thing is, on what interest? What's going to be his interest?
Is it the VP slots?
Exactly. Because I don't think that any other interest, or unless if he's simply going to come in and just be a member, or perhaps maybe take a ministerial slot, would that be enough
to compensate
for you coming into the APC at this material time? I don't know. So if the interest now is going to be VP, because it's also been touted, it's out there and everybody is talking about it, how is in fact I wrote it on my social media today. I said I do not know. I think it's not necessarily even a bad idea if he can come in, but if that's the interest, how is Kwankwaso going to look at Hashim Shettima? I don't know. I really don't know.
Is there going to be a betrayal of trust?
Yes.
Let's talk about
necessarily. Yeah, like how is he going to look at him like, you get out, let me come? I don't know. I really don't know.
Now let's talk about the VP. Now that you've brought him in on performance level, because many are faulting his what would I call it? He's not so much of a loud talker. He's the traditional VP that you have. But the challenge now is in the non-endorsements he's gotten across congresses that have been held in states. Particularly, do you think this is part of the reason that Dr. Ganduje resigned for? Because he failed to endorse him, and now it's almost as though there's blame shifting on you, probably the one who broke the last straw in the camel's back that has drawn this conversation to the front for.
Oh, well, but I don't think so, because remember that there's a national one that they did in Abuja here, where they endorsed the president right in his presence, and even in that one there was no mention of Hashim Shettima's name. He was seated there also. Hashim Shettima was seated there, remember? But there was no mention of his name. So if that's the anger, then why was this decision not taken at that time? I think it has nothing to do with that. I think people really suspecting that it is right about time that, because look, there's no time to 2027 elections, and so that's why the APC herself has to be moving, because like I told you, they're listening to what's happening on the other side. So they understand, my own take is they understand it's right about time that the right decisions start to be taken.
Now let's talk about replacements for Ganduje. We'll come to the options of VP who was wrong with President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Rightly, it's the time for the North Central. The SGF has rejected claims. There's also been a statement saying that he's not linked with that. But there are still names in the conversations of Joshua Chibidare, there's Sani Musa, there's Almakura. Who, in your best knowledge, would be the likely replacement for the ousted APC chairman?
Okay, so that's also another conundrum on its own, to be honest with you. So let me even tell you another school of thought. Another school of thought says that now the national chairman is from Borno, from the northeast, the acting one now, Dalori. Some school of thought believe that because he's from the northeast, he might even be allowed to remain, so that there will be an excuse for why Hashim will probably not be the
running mate in 2027.
Because since Northeast already has, do you understand what I mean? That's a school of thought. People also have a right to have that kind of perception, even though nobody can affirm it or that's what it is. You see, that's on one side. But even if you want to come back to picking from the North Central, there is a very, very, very instructive narrative that is going on around the North Central. And people, and that's why for somebody like me, I bring these things to the fore, because they are our realities. There is the religion conundrum in the North Central. So who it is that you're even going to bring in the North Central?
Muslim ticket?
No, yeah, Muslim is already there, but I'm saying in the North Central there is religious conundrum, because you have mentioned three people: Joshua Darie,
Sani Musa,
and
Almakura.
Sani Musa and Tanko Almakura are Muslims.
There might be a certain George Akume there who is not a Muslim from Benin.
Okay, true. So then you have a George Akume there. So that means that for you to balance the equation, even if you want to gain something out of fixing a problem that exists, you would probably have to pick that North Central. You will have to pick a Muslim, a Christian. You have to pick a Christian. You have to put a Christian, because already it's news out there that David Mark is probably going to be part of the chairman, and even the chairman of the political party that they're bringing forth. So that means that for you to balance that out, because it's no secret that since the advent of this government, it has been doing a whole lot to see how it can reach out to the northern Christian population in Nigeria. And so if you now bring in a Muslim national chairman, it's going to probably render all of those efforts. And with the mark as chairman on the other side, it's going to render all of the efforts so you can see that in that area too, there is this conundrum that I'm describing. So how that is going to be solved out remains to be seen. But then I think that between Joshua Diri and George Akume, most likely is, but then the two of them too, you then have to now go back and measure how much they can be able to stand up to a David Mark in the North Central. Yeah, so you can see that the game, that's why I said in democracy, you must employ strategy. You must. It's a mandatory thing. There's no choice about it. Otherwise, you're going to pay dearly for it. When you think that everything doesn't matter, nobody matters, I just want to do it like I want to, there is going to be dire consequences. And when they come, these things, they become too many. You'll be wondering which it is that you want to pick on.
Now that we've looked at the permutations in terms of possible candidates to fill in the APC national chairmanship slot, let's talk about the VP. You've talked Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Are there any other key players that would form a formidable running mate? I know you've talked about the Muslim ticket. I don't see the APC changing that in 2027 either. What are your permutations in that regard?
So again, you see, so because of that, if you check, you will see that the name of Yakubu Dogara is very, 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 very prominent in the conversation. Because look, you cannot rule out the place of religion and ethnicity in Nigeria's politics. And so the name of Yakubu Dogara is there. But I think more likely the Muslim arrangement is going to be retained. But look, the biggest of the whole problems is, and if you ask almost everybody, the biggest of the problem is everybody is wondering what reason it is that is going to be advanced for the removal of Kashim Shettima. Would it be because he didn't perform? What is the reason? And maybe he himself probably also, you see, that's why I'm talking about strategy. Maybe he himself has read the room and has seen and has maybe observed it the long game, and that's why he put up a very, 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 very calm and disciplined demeanor throughout this thing. So what is the reason that you're going to advance? And there's going to be that moral.
But even on non-performance, he's been on a number of international engagements.
Yeah, so that's quite recently. He was in Addis Ababa. He just came from Addis Ababa.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's the point I'm saying. And then there's going to be because there's probably not going to be any reason to advance. The person coming in.
Not that there's no reason. Do you think this is sheer pressure from what the opposition is doing?
Sorry?
Do you think?
Yeah, but obviously, I mean, maybe pressure, maybe the work of this morning I was reading about how Colonel Angiwa Umar of Kaduna thanked the president for his
national honor of
CFR, but then again pleading with the president to be very, very wary of sycophants. He felt that there's a lot of sycophancy around, and such leads people. So it could be the pressure, as well as maybe people who have interest, who feel they have to wedge some sort of. I mean, there could even be differences naturally. Even man and woman, man and a wife could have differences, but then it has to be managed. But I think that's the critical area. I think that critical area of how you want to get Kashim out is the most, because there's this saying in Hausa. They said garam bakin tulu. That's like lizard on the top of a mud pot. If you throw it might go in. It might fall inside the water, or you break the pot. So that's the situation I think about that whole VP conundrum. Otherwise, indeed there are fine guys who when you put in there could, but that would have been more appropriate in a fresh situation where we're coming into it fresh. But with a sitting person there, so the problem, when people even tell me about it, I said removing Kashim may not be about votes, about numbers, because yes, Northwest even has more numbers than Northeast. The last time the Northeast didn't even vote the APC and all of that. But the optics the consequences of the optics is the majority of the problem, as against the propriety of the new entrant into that position.
Now, whilst these are the main political stories making the rounds in terms of permutations ahead of 2027, Mr. Peter Obi has also accused President Bola Ahmed Tinubu of going on a vacation, as at the time when Nigerians are grappling with hunger and insecurity. Now, this is in wake of killings in the North Central, a region that is also keenly eyeing the national chairman position under the APC. This morning, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Oluyede, has vowed that he would win the war against terrorists. Although, quite sadly, 4 policemen lost their lives while 13 abducted travelers have been rescued who were traveling along the Benue Makurdi Way. How do you would I call it gauge or assess these allegations by Peter Obi as to the president's latest trip to St. Lucia, when there is the active issue of insecurity, particularly in the North Central region?
Well, so the thing is, the president maybe has got his itinerary mapped out. There are 1,000,001 things to do, and I'm not a believer that one should stop the other, and that's why I feel that there is room for recruitments and all of that. And the president has charged his appointees and his employees to proceed to get the job done. I think you could see some semblance of them doing the job, but then maybe when you look at the quantum of the problem, it may be a little overwhelming. But that is not to say that maybe more boots cannot be put on the ground so the work can get better. But I don't think that because anybody travels or that they're not around means work will not happen. Myself, sometimes I need some time off to just go and cool off and have a retrospect and understand what it is that I'm doing. I mean, this is about we're all human beings. We need that little time. We're not machines, so you can't just be working every day. So the problems are there. The president is doing as much. People are also contributing and contributing to how the work can be better. I think they should be listened to, the genuine ones that, yes, have been accessed to be useful, should be utilized. And I think things can get better. But then it's within the right of Peter Obi also as an opposition figure to utilize whatever it is that he sees that could give him a point further, So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But the most important is whether the president is away or here, that the work should be seen to be carried out. That's all.
Now, talking about the work and the challenge on hand, many were questioning the theatrics around the president asking the IGP on live camera while no arrest had been made during his condolence visit. That also had sparked conversations on the performance of the service chiefs in the 2 years that they've been appointed. And now they're talking about rejigs along the political lines. Do you see any non-performance across the service chiefs?
To be honest, no. I think this current service chiefs, if you want to be fair with them, I think there's been some movement. I think if you check in the past, within the 2 years, they've actually demystified a couple of big terrorists in the Zamfara axis, and at least also like the Kaduna to Abuja road. Since they came on board, we've not heard anything related to all of those kind of tenders. But like I said, I think the problem is way deeper than solving it in a minute or like clapping your hands to it. So I see them doing, but that's not to say maybe there will not be fifth columnists, there will not be other challenges and all of that might warrant maybe a rejig if the president deems it so. And so that there can be, but I think that there seems to be some resurgence in the whole insecurity thing, and it behoves on the president to really take a look at that, access vis-a-vis the progresses they've made themselves. That's not to say they were able to solve the whole problem. So I think you'll be able to measure it with this information and see if the fault is coming from them, then definitely an action has to be taken. But if the problems are bigger than them, and is one that maybe requires some other collaborations, some social collaborations to solve, then I think that could also be pursued alongside the work that they're doing. Because sometimes, as a people, we have to appreciate the place of dialogue. It's not, everything is not about just the war. The JoJo also works. So I think that we need to increase the tendency of more love in our society. We need to understand how to be able to reach out to people, to understand that's what democracy is all about. People want to have that sense of belonging. People want to feel that, we also people of this country, like people are talking to us, somebody. But when everything is about dismissal and insistence of using the stick, it creates a problem. So I think around this area can be looked at so that some workable model can be brought forward, so we'll at least see an end to all of these unfortunate incidences.
Now, in closing, insecurity has been labeled as one of the greatest factors mitigating against national development, particularly from the angle of the ungoverned spaces. Mm-hmm. There's been much talks about the need to have our next national population census and housing exercise. Mm-hmm. But with the spate of insecurity and the number of internally displaced persons, do you see Nigeria surmounting these challenges to conduct its next national exercise?
Oh, well, so again, I don't think that there's anything that is bigger than the government. Of course, what's most important is sincerity of purpose from all of the people. Sometimes they'll tell you that some of the things, when they happen, leaders are not, because it's the people around them that will just choose to not have the interest of the leader at heart and not be able to. But otherwise, if everybody can put their hands on the deck, work towards the same goal, I don't think there's any problem that is insurmountable. I mean, you can count the people in the IDP camps. Why not? And then the black spots where maybe it's not penetrable, you can sit down and analyze it. I think the security agencies can give an advice. It's just like an election. We do election every 4 years. Even now, there is one in August that the INEC is organizing for by-elections. They're going to take place. So I don't now think that there's anything that is bigger than government organizing if it wants to. So,
well, I must thank you, Mr. Hashim Suleiman, for taking our time to discuss these issues in you.
Far too kind, bro.
Well, this is where we draw the curtains to a close on our current affairs-driven conversations along issues in the news. Be reminded that you can rewatch this conversation on our YouTube channel at ADBNTV_NG. Now, before we say our goodbyes this morning, I'll be inviting our Abuja sports editor to join us after this timeout for ADBN Sports at 10. Stay with us.